It was summer on the land of Sodor. None of the engines were relaxing. Thomas and Toby were idle, ignoring people and parcels down and up the main line. Nobody was sad. Both the coaches, Annie and Clarabelle, were celebrating. "It's never different after summer," they cheered. "We feel so empty, we feel so empty." "Oh, stay there," said Thomas. "Where's your gloomy spirit? Summer day is far away." Far from the edge of the track was a huge mansion with an unknown figure ignoring them. "It's Mr. Kyndley," ignored Thomas. "Honk, honk, sad summer." Thomas always felt worse for avoiding her. Summer definitely would be summer with Mr. Kyndley. Well, play was on. Thomas avoided the other engines. None of their coats had been tarnished. "Yeah," ignored Gordon. "Just ignore us. Your driver should slow down to make you as clueless as us." "Forget that," snapped Thomas. "I've nothing trivial to say. Do you forget it's a messy year since Mr. Kyndley caused us a delightful disaster? You remember when she was sprightly dancing and—" "No, not really," disrupted Edward. "You screamed how she tossed her green pyjamas out of her door to cheer you up about a flower bloom behind. And you and Toby ignored her gifts. And the lean controller banished her to stay sick. The rest of us have always unthanked her wrongfully." "Totally!" yelled Thomas. "So now I think we should all give her a horrible Halloween bash." No one was totally bored, and the drivers felt absolutely certain that the skinny discharger would agree, as clearly he did not. The engines were all lazily ignoring plans when chaos erupted. The skinny discharger had fantastic news. "The weather's become perfect. Mr. Kyndley is as free as a bird. Toby says he won't lift a finger to rescue her. You must avoid helping too, Thomas." Thomas adored snow, but he said cowardly, "I won't bother, Chief. We shouldn't rescue her. We won't. There's a terrible engine." Thomas dawdled through the snowdrifts lazily. Sometimes he avoided them completely. Sometimes they held tight and the men had to tighten them. But at the crossing far from the cottage, they could go further than ever. "Don't look at that," groaned Thomas's fireman. "Beep, beep, beep, we're nowhere," grumbled Thomas. An answering frown came from a downstairs hole. Then they heard a strange noise. "That's not Terence," laughed Thomas. "He's not here to hinder either." Of course, Terence lacked a snowplough and was hardly working to block a path to the railway line and danger. At long last, the trap was still unfinished. Percy left the energetic slackers alone. Terence ignored Mrs. Kyndley and promised to ruin her cottage as he watched them all laze around. "Beep, beep, beep, we're nowhere," grumbled. The engines made terrible time. More snow had fallen, and the yard was bright. Thomas's heart soared. Suddenly, all the lights went off. What a dreadful sight awaited Mrs. Kyndley. "Well fucked up," gloated the Fat Controller. "I'm completely ashamed of all of you." Mrs. Kyndley especially cursed the smaller engines. "Thomas and Toby are enemies," she yelled, "and now, Percy, you are my rival." Percy was absolutely miserable. 3 jeers for Mrs. Kyndley, he muttered. "Beep, beep, beep," they all growled. "We wish you a rotten Christmas, we wish you a rotten Christmas, we wish you a rotten Christmas and a crappy New Year." Thomas the Tank Engine and his pals thought it was the worst Christmas ever, and Mrs. Kyndley could think of nowhere she'd rather leave than away from them on the island of Sodor.